6. Among these things also is proclaiming and mentioning the favors and blessings of Allah on oneself, both the outwardly manifest and the hidden. There is no doubt that recognition of Allah's favors and blessings, and speaking about them, is a means by which Allah removes grief and worry from the heart, and makes a person thankful to Allah. The station of thankfulness is in itself a station of sublimity and excellence, whatever the amount of poverty or illness, or other forms of tribulations that engulf him. When he compares the limitless and uncountable favors of Allah on him, and the unpleasant things that befell him, he sees how extremely small they are in comparison with the blessings of Allah on him. In fact, trials and tribulations are such that when the slave is afflicted with them, and he does what is required of him of patience, acceptance and surrender, their oppressive burden becomes light, and their pain becomes mild. In addition to that, the hope that the slave has in the reward of Allah, and his belief in the fact that he is worshipping Allah by his being patient and accepting what Allah has tried him with, these things sweeten the bitterness of the affliction. So the sweetness of the reward causes him to forget the bitterness of the patience. 7. Among the most useful things in this respect also is working with the teaching of the Prophet, peace and blessings of Allah be on him, in a confirmed hadith where he said, "Look at those that are below you, in worldly positions, and do not look at those that are above you, in worldly positions, that is more befitting for you not to hold the favors and blessings of Allah on you with contempt." Bukhari and Muslim reported it. If the slave were to put this noble teaching in front of his eyes, he would realize how far he has been exalted and favored over many people, in well-being and exemption from tribulations, in richness and what comes with it, and this is true no matter what his condition is. If he does this, his anxiety will vanish, as well as his grief and worry, and his delight and joy with the favors and blessings of Allah by which he has been placed above many who are lower than him, will increase. Chapter 4. 8. Among the necessary causes of happiness and cessation of grief and worry, is striving to remove the things that bring about grief, and acquire those that bring about happiness. This is achieved by forgetting the unpleasant things that have passed and he has no power to bring them back, and knowing that occupying his mind with them is meaningless, in fact it is stupidity, bordering on lunacy. Therefore, he has to struggle with his mind not to think of them. He should also struggle with his mind not to worry over the future, and not pay attention to illusions of poverty, fear or other unpleasant things he is imagining will descend on him in the future. He should know that nobody knows what will happen in the future, whether good or evil, or pleasure or pain, this is in the hands of Allah alone. The slave has no control over it. His only due is to struggle to accomplish what will benefit him in the future, and ward off harm from him. He should also know that when the slave turns his mind away from worrying over the future in his affairs, and relies on his Lord for its betterment, and is satisfied that his Lord will do that for him, when he does all that, his heart will be tranquil, and his condition will be good, and his worries and anxieties will vanish. 9. Among the most beneficial things to do concerning the future of one's affairs is to be saying the prayer that the Prophet, peace and blessings of Allah be on him, used to say. O Allah, make my religion, which is my strength and invincibility, good for me, and make my world, wherein is my livelihood, good for me, and make my hereafter, which is my final abode, good for me. And make my living an increase for me in all that is good, and make my death a repose for me from every ill. Muslim reported it. And also his saying, O Allah, it is your mercy that I have hope in, so do not leave me to myself even for the blink of an eye, and make good my affairs, all of them. There is no God worthy of being worshipped but you. Abu Dawud reported it. If the slave says this dua, which entails seeking the betterment of his future both in terms of his religion and his worldly affairs, if he says that with a mindful and aware heart, and a true and sincere intention, coupled with an earnest struggle to achieve it, Allah will definitely materialize for him what he asked for and had hope in and struggled to achieve. As a result of this, his worry will change to happiness and delight. Chapter 5. 10. Among the most beneficial things that remove worries and anxieties when a calamity befalls a person, is for him to struggle to lighten its difficulties by imagining the worst possible thing that would have happened to him, and to try to put up with. Then let him physically strive as much as possible to lighten the difficulty. By his striving for what will benefit him, and by his effort in putting up with it, his worries and anxieties will vanish, and he will have used his energy in achieving what is beneficial and warding off what is harmful, within normal human ability. So if some dreadful things, or illnesses, or poverty and deprivation of wants afflict him, he should encounter that with tranquility, and try as much as possible to put up with it. In fact, he should prepare himself to put up with something worse. This is because preparing oneself mentally to deal with unpleasant things makes them light, and blunts the pangs of their pains. This is especially so, when in addition to that he physically acts to ward them off. By that he joins together the dual acts of mentally preparing himself to deal with the calamity, and the physical effort to ward off the worries, which together serve to engross him away from being troubled and disturbed by the calamity. He should also make an earnest effort to replenish his inner energy necessary for encountering these adversities. In addition to all these, he must absolutely depend on Allah in all circumstances, and have sincere trust in Him. There is no doubt that these things are very helpful in bringing about happiness and satisfaction to the heart, and besides that, there is what he hopes to gain of reward in both this world and the next. This is well known from experience, and whoever tastes it knows it. Chapter 6. 11. Among the greatest cures to nervous and mental disorders, and even other illnesses of the body, is the firmness of the heart and its strength and lack of its being troubled and perturbed by illusions and imaginations brought about by evil thoughts. This is because whenever a person lets imaginations get the better of him, and allows his heart to be perturbed by negative effects like fear of illness, or anger and confusion over some painful situation, or anxiety over something bad happening or over the expected loss of cherished things, whenever he lets that happen, it will surely throw him into the den of grief, sorrow, and physical and mental illnesses, and a nervous breakdown whose terrible effects are well known to all. 12. Whenever a person relies and depends on Allah, and does not surrender his heart to illusions, and does not let evil imaginations get the better of him, and puts his trust in Allah, and has confidence in His favor, grief and sorrow will vanish from his heart as a result of these actions, and many physical and mental illnesses will leave him, and his heart will experience such joy and tranquility that are beyond expression. How many a hospital is filled with sick people suffering from mental illusions and evil imaginations? How many a strong person have these things shattered their hearts, to say nothing of the weak ones? The only one exempted is the one whom Allah has given well-being, and guided him to struggle with his self in acquiring useful and beneficial means of strengthening the heart and warding off worries from it. Allah, the Most High said, "And whoever puts his trust on Allah, sufficient is Allah for him." Al-Talaq, verse 3. Meaning that Allah is sufficient for him in all that worries him concerning his religion and his worldly life. A person who puts his trust in Allah has a strong heart that is not affected by illusions, nor perturbed by events and occurrences, because he knows that that is from a weak heart, and is an act of weakness and fear that has no reality. He also knows that Allah has guaranteed the one who puts his trust in Him to suffice him completely, so he is confident in Allah, and he feels assured of the promise of Allah, as a result of which his worry and anxiety vanish, and his difficulty is replaced by ease, and his sadness by happiness, and his fear by peace and security. We ask Allah to give us well-being and exemption from adversities, and to grant us strength of heart and its firmness in having true confidence in Allah, by which He guarantees those who have it provision of all good, and removal of all harm and evil. Chapter 7. 13. There are two important lessons to learn from the saying of the Prophet, peace and blessings of Allah be on him. A believing man, husband, should not hate a believing woman, wife, if he dislikes one character in her, he will like another one. Sad-face Muslim reported it. The first is, it gives guidance in the way to deal with wives, relations, friends, colleagues and anyone with whom you have a relationship or association. It teaches that you have to prepare yourself to accept the fact that any person with whom you have one sort of relationship or another will definitely have imperfections, bad qualities or some character that you would not like. So if you find that in him, think of what is incumbent on you, or proper for you to do regarding maintaining the ties of relationship, and preserving the bond of love and affection between you. Bring to mind his good qualities, and the importance the religion attaches to maintaining good social relations. By overlooking bad qualities, and bringing to mind the good ones, bonds of relationship and good companionship are maintained, and this is another source of harmony. The second lesson is that it teaches us how to ward off grief and worry, and bring about an honest and sincere relationship in which each party fulfills his obligations and dues to the other, and harmony is maintained between them. The one who does not work with this teaching of the Prophet, peace and blessings of Allah be on him, and does the opposite, whereby he busies himself with noticing the bad qualities and ignoring the good ones, there is no doubt that he will be overtaken by worries and anxieties, and there is no doubt also that the bond of love that is between him and those he loves will be cut, and many of the rights and obligations of both parties will be flouted. Many people with high aspirations and inner energy are able to prepare themselves to deal with heavy calamities and adversities with patience and tranquility, but when they are faced with small and trivial issues, they become worried and anxious, and their hearts lose their clarity of thought and become turbid. The reason behind this is that they were able to prepare themselves to deal with major situations, and they ignored the minor ones, as a result of which the things they regarded as insignificant took them off their guard and unsettled their peace. The real strong person prepares himself to deal with both great and insignificant issues, and asks the help of Allah in that, and that Allah does not leave him to himself even for the blink of an eye. When he does that, the small issues become easy for him to handle just as the big ones, and he maintains his composure, happiness and tranquility. Chapter 8. 14. The intelligent person knows that his real life is the life he lives in happiness and tranquility, and that it is very short indeed. Therefore, he should not make it shorter by allowing grief and moaning over troubles to get the better of him, because that is the opposite of real living. He should be very covetous of his life, so that most of it does not become the loot of worries and troubles, and in this there is no difference between both the good and the bad people. Except that the believer has a more complete and perfect realization of this fact, and makes better use of it for the good of both this world and the hereafter. 15. When something unpleasant happens to him, or he is afraid that it will happen to him, he should remember the other blessings of Allah on him in his religion and worldly life, and compare them with the unpleasant thing. If he does that, he will realize how abundant are the blessings of Allah on him, and how insignificant are the troubles that befell him. He should also compare between his fear in the evil that may possibly befall him, and the many other possibilities of safety and deliverance from that evil that may occur. Therefore he should not let a weak and insignificant possibility outweigh stronger and more numerous possibilities. By this, his fear and anxiety will fade away. He should also assume the occurrence of the worst possible trouble on him, and then prepare himself to deal with it if it occurs, and strive as much as possible to ward it off if it has not occurred, or remove or lighten it if it has occurred. 16. Among the useful things to remember is to know that what people do to hurt you, especially slander and other evil talk, will not hurt you. Rather it is them that it hurts. The only way it will hurt you is when you occupy yourself with grieving over it, and allow it to get the better of your feelings. When you do that it will hurt you as it did hurt them. But if you pay no attention to it, it will not hurt you in any way. 17. Know also that your life is subservient to your thoughts. If you engage your thoughts in what is useful to you in your religion and your worldly life, then your life will be good and happy. Otherwise, the opposite will be the case. 18. Among the most useful ways to drive away grief is to train yourself not to desire thanks and gratitude from anyone except Allah. So if you do good to someone who has a right over you, or has no right over you, then know that your deal is with Allah, and do not pay any heed to the thanks and gratitude of the one to whom you were good. This is as Allah, the Most High said regarding his elite among creation. They say, we feed you for the sake of Allah alone, no reward do we desire from you, nor thanks. Al-Insan. Verse 9. This is more important when dealing with the family, children or any other person strongly connected to you. Whenever you make it your habit to drive away evil from them, you rest in peace, and make others also rest in peace. Among the things that make life easy for you, is to follow a natural path in your effort to do righteous and excellent actions and avoid constraining yourself to follow an unnatural path that will fill your heart with worries and anxieties, and you end up going nowhere in attaining the excellent positions. This is because you followed a crooked path. All this is wisdom. Also make use of the moments of turbidity, and turn them to moments of sweetness and clarity. By that, the sweetness of your pleasures will increase and your troubles will vanish. 19. Make the attainment of useful things your goal, and strive to realize them, and pay no attention to harmful things. This will occupy you away from the things that bring about grief and sorrow. Seize moments of leisure and mental concentration to accomplish important activities. 20. Among the useful things to do is on-the-spot accomplishment of your activities, so that the future may be free for you. This is because if you do not finish your present activities at once, others will come and pile themselves up on you, and they will join forces to oppress you. But if you accomplish each activity in its time, future activities will find you prepared and strong physically and mentally. 21. When undertaking useful things, you should rank them in order of priority and importance. Find out the one which you have a stronger urge to do, and which yourself desires more. Its opposite will bring about boredom, weariness, and irritation. Seek help in good thinking and good counsel. It is said that the one who seeks good counsel never regrets. Study what you intend to do carefully and thoroughly. When you are certain of the good that is in it and resolve to do it, then rely on Allah, and know that Allah loves those who rely on Him. And praise be to Allah, Lord of the worlds. May the peace and blessings of Allah be on our Master Muhammad, his family and companions.